My blood glucose and A1C are sky high all the time, and sure I'm diabetic, but I'm lean and my cholesterol is low, so hey, it's not a big deal. Stop trusting Big Pharma. That's basically the kind of logic Baker is using.
Yeah, like it's kind of a funny double standard. So when it comes to cholesterol, oh, ignore it if every other marker's fine. But then when it comes to any other marker, like having massively high blood glucose or A1C, oh, that's a problem. Like it's stupid. He's just cherry picking, which biomarkers to be concerned with, and obviously it's motivated reasoning. He knows that this is a common problem on this sort of diet. So he's just, working backwards from this idea. Oh, I got to prove that the carnivore diet's okay. Thanks for the donation, Adam. Yeah, thanks for the donation, Titty.
I'm sure many of you have seen a recent headline where the UN is sort of saying that Americans have to cut back on eating meat to save the world due to climate change. And so obviously you want to give an Elon Musk-esque answer of basically F you to that. But let's look into perhaps some of the motivation and some of the facts surrounding that request. So first of all, the United Nations is a voluntary organization funded by many states. What we're finding out is they have a huge funding base from private corporations and also philanthropic organizations. They're the largest non-state donor.
Oh, here we go. Bill Gates supports veganism and is vegetarian, and he's funded Beyond Meat, and he's a donor to the UN. So therefore, all this stuff about, the environment is a scam. It's just Bill and Melinda Gates trying to stop you from eating meat so that the Illuminati lizard people.
To the UN is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Surprise, surprise. And Bill Gates has gone on record to say that Western companies need to cut back on eating meat and eat synthetic meat or plant-based meat. And oh, by the way, he happens to be heavily invested in all those things. So there's no, of course, conflict of interest there. Other companies like Coca-Cola and other processed
Oh my God, dude.
companies also
Just, oh my God.
significantly to the United Nations. And so when we give up meat or animal products in general, we know unequivocally that what happens is people tend to eat more ultra-processed food. It's not, that is what happens. This study here shows that the people that eat the most processed foods are the people that are.
Higher avoidance of animal-based foods was associated with, how do they define ultra-processed? So, I guess, a Beyond Burger could be considered ultra-processed, but it's a healthier alternative to eating a normal burger. So, how are they defining ultra-processed?
On the most plant-based diets are the people that give up the most animal products. Think about butter versus margarine. We know
margarine is objectively better for you than butter. We use emulsion-based margarines now, and they, again, are objectively better for you than butter.
That if you give up meat, you're not going to eat beans and tofu. You're going to largely eat ultra-processed foods. And so that
the majority of my caloric intake right now is sweet potatoes and tofu.
That is extremely profitable. This is what is going on. You see big capital assets groups like BlackRock and Vanguard own significant shares in ultra-processed foods because they know that provides them.
So again, this guy cannot provide any evidence to the contrary. He can't provide evidence suggesting, oh, look, meat isn't contributing to CO2 or carbon emissions. It's not environmentally harmful. We can feed, an extra 7 billion people on the planet while still keeping the same current food system. No, he can't do any of that. So what he has to do is say, Bill Gates is behind everything. Like, nothing but conspiracy theory nonsense.
Tremendous return on their investment for their shareholders. They also subsequently own significant interest in pharmaceutical companies who then profit on you by giving you medications, right? The number of cows in the United States, for instance, in 1975, when it peaked, was 132 million head of cattle. We now have down to about 90 million head of cattle. So we've lost tremendous number of cattle in the United States. The average beef consumption back then.
Is that even an accurate figure? Because you can actually have greater like red meat production while still having fewer head of cattle at any one time, depending on how high the like how fast you can make them grow. But even if red meat consumption has gone down, consumption of like chicken and shit has gone through the fucking roof. Let's see, meat consumption US by year. Let me just see if I can find a graph.
Does eating gallons of cum and anal juice make me a carnivore? If so, I'm guilty. I love to warm up a big glass of cum in the morning and guzzle it down like a shake. Very healthy. Can we have a subscriber orgy? Want to see you stretch out Christie's bumhole.
Yeah, maybe we can, do that sometime. Don't see why not. Thanks for the donation, Double Pen Gang. Yeah, so beef is the blue line here. It hasn't gone down that much since the 70s. And total meat intake has increased, so I don't know what he's fucking complaining about.
It was about 92 pounds per person per year. It's now around 52 pounds per year. And since that time, health has not gotten better, right? The climate has not gotten better. So-called methane in the atmosphere has not gotten better. So it's not cows being a problem.
Oh my God. Total meat consumption has increased. And wait, let me... By the way, this is per capita. Yeah. So he's talking about per capita consumption. Total consumption is increased. There's a greater population than there was in the 1970s. So he's fudging the numbers here. You could have a reduction in per capita meat consumption, but have an increase in actual meat consumption. It's just not per capita increase. Like, this guy is so stupid. It's just unbelievable.
If we're talking about, cows in the world, the largest number of cattle in the entire world belongs to India. India has 300 million head of cattle. You compare that to the 90 million.
India is one of the biggest polluters in the entire world. Partly that is because of, their cattle, but their energy system is incredibly inefficient because of the amount of traffic and everything in India and the amount of cars that are like in gridlock. That's also a huge factor. India is one of the most polluted fucking places on earth.
In the United States, China has 100 million head of cattle. Brazil has 220 million head of cattle. And so by asking Americans to give up beef, are you going to tell India to kill all its cattle? Is that what they think they're going to do?
Oh my God, dude.
No, of course not. They're not going to do that. Giving up meat is a problem. It will make you more likely to be sick. And
giving up meat will make you more likely to be sick. That's why the longest living population is the Californian Adventist vegetarians, right? That's why every single large-scale prospective cohort has shown people who eat less meat are more healthy. Is that what I'm getting from this?
By the way, when we look at greenhouse gas emissions in the United States, 2% of our greenhouse gas emissions come from cattle, whereas...
Yeah, so he's referencing I think an EPA chart that he found, and that wasn't even accurate.
Somewhere between 4 and 10% of our emissions come from the healthcare sector. And so again...
Yeah, so I think, I saw him post this on Twitter one time. He said that total greenhouse gas emissions from cattle is only 2%. That's impossible, because if you look at, I think this even came from the EPA themselves, enteric for emissions alone were 4%, so that's impossible.
What's going to happen when you give up meat? Everybody eats more processed food. They utilize more health care sector, resources, and that creates more greenhouse gases. So, anyway, this is
just insane.
Evil. It is filled with just profit and greed. It will do nothing to improve the health of the population. It will do nothing to improve any aspect of the climate. It is all grandstanding and.
Dude, when this guy dies of a stroke or heart attack or something from his shitty diet, we're going to throw a pretty big I told you so party.
Nonsense. Even if you believe cows are a problem, rather than killing them and getting rid of them, you can mitigate methane. There are methods that have been shown to do that. UC Davis, Frank Mitloehner is showing that feed additives can dramatically.
No, Sean doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Those feed additive studies were not done in an actual real world setting. What they did was they cut a hole in a cow's stomach, took out its like this digestive slosh, and then they mixed in feed additives to that digestive slough to see what happened to the methane emissions. And they found that methane emissions went down when they added some of these additives to this, sludge that came out of the cow's stomach. They've never actually given cows a specialized feed and then were able to measure that methane emissions from these cows went down.
Drop methane emissions. You can regeneratively pasture those animals to not only.
No such thing as regenerative pasture. Like, pasture is the worst when it comes to methane emissions.
Only limit the emissions, but also completely offset the carbon and become.
You cannot completely offset carbon emissions.
Carbon sink, so they're carbon negative.
No, there is no farm on the planet that has a carbon negative, beef farm.
Anyway, don't fall for this.
This guy just loves to spread misinformation.
You guys won't, but get this message out there. Share this information out there. I may be going on Fox News tomorrow to talk about this, and I'll basically talk about what we just talked about, because it is incredibly important for us, our future, for our children's future, for their health, and for the food sovereignty of this country. We should not bend the knee to what the UN has to say. We are a sovereign nation, and it is not in our interest to comply.
Oh my God.
You guys take care.
What a jackass. Just what an insane jackass. Imagine if he applied the same logic to vaccines. The United Nations is, responsible for so many vaccine programs. And guess what? There's a lot of pharmaceutical companies that give money to the UN for these vaccine programs. Dun, dun, dun! Clearly, vaccines are a scam. Like, he doesn't use that type of logic in that scenario, but, motivated reasoning, we always have to work back from the position that, meat is good for us. Carnivore